we threw this together really quickly.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about what people are not talking about when they saw the Tori Yorgey video, which by now, if you haven't seen the video, you live under a freaking rock. But I'm actually going to play it right now on the screen.
Okay.
So we can get an idea of what we're talking about here. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A frightening moment that played out on live television. Tori Yorgey, a reporter for WSAZ, that's the NBC affiliate in Huntington, West Virginia. She was about to do a live report when she was accidentally hit by a car. Take a look.
Unfortunately, in freeze thaw, we see this water main breaks.
Jesus.
I got hit by a car, but I'm okay. I just got hit by a car, but I'm okay, Tim.
That's the first for you on
okay.
TV, Tori.
We're all good. I'm okay. Yeah, that's live TV for you. It's all good. I actually got hit by a car in college too, just like that.
Wow.
I am so glad I'm okay.
Yeah.
You're okay.
We're so glad too,
gosh.
Tori. So the driver of that SUV did stop to make sure she was okay.
Oh my
But get this, Yorgey, who was all alone, no photographer. As you can see there, she goes on to finish the live shot with the report about the weather situation there in Dunbar, West Virginia. Later, she did go to the hospital to get checked out. She is said to be doing just fine this morning.
That's all we need to see. I think everyone's seen it at this point. But, that's what we're here to talk about today, right? That video. And that is not an isolated incident. I mean, stuff happens to reporters across the country who are multimedia journalists. And we are here to talk about that tonight, but or today, whenever people are watching this. But let's go around and who are we? Why are we important to talk about this? So why don't you kick it off, Kris, for us?
Okay, so I am Jade, so multimedia journalist, basically one man banded. In my very first market in Texoma. So I shot everything, would come back, feed the video. I didn't go live by myself, so I never had to go in Tori's position, but and I was an overnight producer. Then I was a anchor in East Texas where I met you guys at NBC Fox station, I think that was the affiliate. And we worked together there. And then I was a news anchor and reporter in Austin for a long time. And then now I'm in upstate New York, where I just recently got out of TV after 13 years. Thank God.
Thank God. Okay, Neeha, go ahead.
So I don't even know what I would call myself right now, but I started in TV, and I will say I think I came in at the tail end of the good old days. I was a assistant producer at NBC in New York at Rockefeller Center. It was awesome. It was so cool. I worked for Dateline, and it was just so fun. And it was just, you had photographers, you had these amazing producers, you had these hosts and anchors, and I thought, and they were doing good journalism, right? Like, this is what I want to do. Went to grad school, went to Syracuse for grad school, and then I took my first job in Greenville, Mississippi. I had never been further south of Virginia. And I met my news director there, Miss Pam Chapman, who was a wonderful news director. And we did not go live solo ever. I went live. I always had an engineer or somebody from production. She always sent somebody from production or an engineer to come shoot your stuff. I did MMJ because that's what you did, right? Your first job, you had a camera, a big camera, a DVC Pro camera, and I edited tape to tape, if it can age me, right?
Me too.
Tape to tape, tape to tape. And there was no, oh my gosh, my personal phone was a Palm Pilot, guys. I had a Palm Pilot. The station phone was one of those unbreakable Nokias. And we used to print out MapQuest directions. There wasn't even Google Maps then, it was MapQuest. And I would drive all over the great state of Mississippi, but yeah, the Delta. And for the most part, my job was really safe. And the VOSOTs that I would pick up were, business openings. I would interview a sheriff in their office, crime scenes. Pam Chapman would actually call ahead and say, hey, and she would call all of her reporters her babies. So she's like, my baby's coming over. Make sure you send a deputy out with her, So that was the experience that I had. And I want to say that just because it is not all bad management, right? Like I've had really good news directors. We have as well, right? In Tyler, we all work for Neil Barton, who was our newsroom dad, right? I worked in Baton Rouge, and after Greenville, I went to Baton Rouge. I was a morning anchor there, and I worked for David Dakan, who was the news director there for WVLA, the NBC affiliate. And he was like that with me. When we had hurricane, he always, in any severe weather, we always were paired up with a photographer. I worked as a producer and an anchor. And I remember there were a lot of shootings that were happening. I would hear it over the scanner. And I called him once and he goes, "Oh, we're not going to send anybody out until the morning and somebody can be there and they can go." And I know it was a different experience for other people, but that was the experience that I had.
Yeah.
Then I went to Tyler and then to Dallas. And I will say, Dallas, I worked for the Fox O&O station there, which was a union shop with very experienced photographers. And I never shot anything. I never edited anything. I reported. And there were instances where we were chased by people who did not want us to be there. But I had my photographer who's been doing this for so long, where he was like, "Get in the car, we're going to go." There were instances where we were in a bad neighborhood and they actually sent a second photographer to keep an eye on while the other photographer did the live shot, right? So my experiences were great, right? Like, this is how it's supposed to be done. When I worked at Tribune for Eye Opener, it was right after the police shooting in Dallas, the really horrific one.
Yeah.
I had a producer, I had a photographer, and I had an engineer. There were 3 people there, and I was also pregnant at the time, but I had 3 people there to watch my back, because at that point we didn't know what was going on, right?
Yeah.
So when I hear of what MMJs now are dealing with, it's shocking. So that's kind of where I'm at. Oh, and I went to Cleveland, where I was.
One more.
Neeha's 30-minute introduction.
I was in
It's
I was gonna
quick intros in the rundown. Come on, Neeha. No,
okay,
just-
fine.
I just want everyone to know we've been on the Zoom for an hour and we have yet
It's fine. It's fine.
about the domestic advance.
I was gonna skip Cleveland, but yeah, I was a morning anchor here in Cleveland. And yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Kendall,
And you recently left. And you
Yes,
recently
there we go.
left.
you recently left. Kendall, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we all recently left. I think Nicole has been out of the business
I was
the
the first one to
longest.
leave. And I've
Which
been
you've
talking
been
to
out
all of you
now
guys
For
about
how
it.
long now? A year
Almost
and a
2
half?
years.
2 years?
2.5 years almost. Wow.
2.5 years. Okay, so I've been out for about 4 months. I'm still really new. So I started at KTK in Tyler with these 4 ladies back in, I guess, 2011. Was there for 2 years and was in news, MMJ'd, which is when you shoot and edit everything yourself, do the whole story yourself from beginning to end. I think we said some of that. And then I was the weekend anchor there. And then after that, I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma and was a lifestyle host there. The show got canceled after 1 year. Then I went back to news, Memphis, Tennessee at WMC. It was the morning anchor there for 3 years. After that, I went and did lifestyle again. So I've done news, lifestyle. So my last job was in the Tampa market in Florida, was there for almost 4 years as a lifestyle host. And I just left about 4 months ago. So I'm fresh out of the biz.
Same. I think I'm only 2 months out, so I may be the newest.
Neeha's like is still figuring it. She's like,
I
figuring it out.
I'm
Yeah,
definitely
not-
still figuring it out.
I think am I the smartest because I got out like way sooner or what? So I worked with all you guys in Tyler, Texas. That was my first market, KETK. I was like a fish out of water. I was like, I get to be on TV. I mean, before I was, in college, I had interned, I had freelanced. I was like, doing anything to get in the news, right? Get a call from Neil Barton. He saw my tape on YouTube. Got hired over the phone. Okay. From my YouTube video. We want to hire you. Next thing you know, I live in Tyler, Texas. And I'm like, we're doing the news. And I met all you wonderful ladies. That was the best part about it. But yeah, MMJ'd for 2 years, and which was like carrying your freaking tripod around with your heels, sweating your butt off, like shooting, editing, all of it, 9 yards, the whole 9 yards. And you think you're like the coolest thing that hit the earth because you're doing TV news, making $20,000 a year. So that was my first market. Then I moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, where I was a reporter and was there I still live in Salt Lake, but I was here for four and a half years. And then I moved to a national position for Scripps TV in Washington, DC, worked there for about 1.5 years, and it was very toxic. So I left. And then now I work in healthcare, and I'm a manager for a big communications manager in healthcare. And I also mentor women who are leaving the news business. And I've talked to each one of you guys at some point.
Yes.
So I just want to read a little bit, because I've had when we've been talking about what happened with Tori, a lot of us have been completely outraged, right? Because I think we all felt ourselves in that, right? In those moments. And I think it was a flashback of, I can't believe I did that. It could have been me. And I will say that MMJs now in 2022 are doing a heck of a lot more than I ever had to do as an MMJ, right? What I did as an MMJ in 2007 was shoot video, edit video, cut a package, and sometimes front it in the studio or go live.
But we didn't have the web or social media or any of that stuff.
Yes. And recently I have seen,
Kris. Thanks.
but I mean, so that was an MMJ position, right? It was manageable, to be honest. Like it was manageable. But what I see now, what MMJs have to do is shoot for different items for the web, right? Put stuff on social media. Your brain is constantly like doing 50 million different things. And also you're driving. I think that's kind of one of the things we don't think about as a hazard. Like, how many times have you been on the phone? I think somebody at KTK had like a viewer call in and was like, so-and-so's on the phone and driving. Well, you're alone in the vehicle, right?
You literally have to be on the phone to be a reporter, and you also have to drive yourself and navigate yourself.
So we didn't know where we were going. We didn't have nav systems in those cars.
And there's nobody there to look it up.
There's no one to help you.
So none of us had to go live, right, on our own, right, as MMJ.
No.
Correct.
But
none of us.
In looking at Tori's video, now we know that's the normal, right, for MMJs. Mm-hmm. They go live all the time by themselves. And seeing Tori's video, I want to know from you guys, what was the most disturbing part about it? If you could pick one part of the video that was the most disturbing, what would you say?
I'll start. She thought she had to keep going.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, she had to. So Kris, you said she had to, the fact that she thought.
Because I know that I've been there. I've been sexually harassed. I've been harassed. I've been threatened while I'm on live TV, and I've had to keep going. And I know exactly. She got hit by that car. She was terrified, and she had to act like everything was fine. And she finished her live shot. Isn't that amazing? It's like, that's not what like, she shouldn't have had to do that.
That's the real story that no one's talking about in this entire thing.
When you played that video, the camera was on the ground and so was she. Like she got fucking, you could put that in there. She got fucking knocked over and was on the ground. She got hit by a car, a vehicle. The camera was on the ground. And it was on the ground for a while where you could hear her adrenaline, right? Like you could hear her just sort of keep talking, like you were saying, Kris, like just keep talking. Mm-hmm. And she kept saying, I'm okay.
You're not okay.
You're on the ground. You're on the ground. The camera's on the ground.
They shot us because it's an action shot. So they're just
that's what I was going to say, piggybacking off of Kris. The most shocking thing to me was that the people in that booth made a decision to stay on her. Mm-hmm. Instead of getting in the anchor's ear and saying, tell them we're going to break. We need to make sure she's okay. We'll be right back.
The sick part
They
about
didn't do that to her.
Mm-mm.
They didn't
I
do that
know.
because, like you said, they knew that this was going to go viral.
Yeah, there's something
That's why I
happening.
said stay on.
Okay.
That's the sick part. I just want to say something really quick. That to me, and so the most shocking part to me was she was clearly in a trauma response. Like she was just in shock. She was saying, I got hit by a car in college too. She just starts I mean, she is just in so much shock physically in her body, in her mind, in that one moment. She didn't know what to do but keep going, because that's what we're trained to do.
That's what we're
Keep
taught to do.
going. You got to keep going. Even if the world falls around you, you have to keep going. So that is a toxic thing that we have to learn how to do working in TV news. And again, what Kendall said, the sick part, and I'm going to use that adjective. It is a sick decision that the booth made when we say the booth, we mean the production booth. They kept that live shot up and they were exploiting her moment of who knows, no one knew how she was. She was by herself. They
I am
exploited
going
her.
to disagree.
Okay.
I'm going to disagree
I think they exploited that.
because I don't think they knew any better, because we've all known who's in the booth.
Yeah.
We
And it's
all
a
know
very-
how young they are, and we also know how inexperienced they are. And I think that in a moment like that, it always, I mean, we've seen it everywhere. Everyone's, blaming the anchor. Yes, he should have handled it
He couldn't
differently.
see.
He said he couldn't see. Okay, yes, the production should have cut away from it. But really, she should never have been out there covering a water main break,
In the dark.
period,
Mhm.
in the
by
dark, by
herself,
herself.
in the dark. Thank you. That is actually the only point that matters.
That's the only thing that matters. I don't care about the booth. I don't care about the anchor. The fact that this was normal, right? Like no one said, "Oh, yeah, you know what?" Because she was night side. She was alone at night shooting on the side of the road. Like that is the only decision that matters. Whoever sent her out there, whoever said maybe we need another person there. Because again, in one of her interviews, she said she couldn't. Of course, you can't see behind you. Of course, you can't see behind you. But
Yeah.
that was a decision that mattered, and I think that's what we've got to focus on. Because I hate talking about production, because I know those people actually get paid less than what the MMJs get paid.
That's very
But this whole situation is bringing up multiple problems.
Multiple issues. Yeah,
within
I know.
Yes.
the new-
Of course,
local
of
news
course,
business.
yeah.
And
That's one of them.
let me just point out some headlines that I've read that are just exploiting how great of a job she did. So this was from Philly Magazine. It says Tori Yorgey, the badass Philly expat,
Yeah, no.
hit by a car during a live TV broadcast. They actually call her a badass, not a shocked, almost injured, maybe even dead. It could have been.
Could you imagine that if we wrote that headline about anybody else, like if there was a police officer who was working a traffic stop and got hit on the side of the road, do you think a reporter would go out there live and say,
You're a
this
badass.
officer was a badass?
No,
We would not say that. We would not be covering it like that.
No, and I'm very disappointed in how this is being covered. Okay. Here's another one: reporter hit by a car during report. Soon to go to this new station, right? The new station that she's going to, WTAE in Philly.
Already like, that's our girl.
Like that's our girl. She's coming.
Blaming
And
her.
then journalist gets hit by a car on live TV, continues reporting. That was the Today Show headline. No one's talking about the fact that she was out there by herself and should have never been out there by herself, with her back turned to a busy road without a photographer watching her back. Because we've all worked with photographers, right? They can tell you when something's coming because they can see.
Mhm.
Not for all the time. I mean, I know stuff happens, but like for the most part, having a second set of eyes out there is a safety issue. And we are talking about the safety issue today because this is a standard. And for those who don't know the business, this is a multimedia journalist, AKA MMJ. This is a standard media business
And
practice.
let's talk about why it's standard, because it's cheaper.
It's cheap.
Because years ago, when news stations started hemorrhaging money from people losing viewership, people are, but not as many people are watching local news anymore because they're streaming. They're losing their revenue, their income from loss of commercials, who's paying our salary. And when salespeople start not being able to sell as many sales because people aren't watching as much TV, things get cut in the news business. But there's no content cutting because there's actually more content that needs
The
to be
quality has been cut.
So the quality is
Except
cut.
these companies that have turned into conglomerates are making a lot of money.
Sinclair is still
They're-
making a ton of money. They
They're
have
making a lot
MBAs.
of money.
They're on the
Executive.
S&P 500, but it's cheaper to hire
It is.
one 22-year-old MMJ than it is to hire
Who's hungry like we all
22-year-old
were.
who's hungry and will do it at live shot in the dark. And I know I would have done it too, probably. If a manager says do it, you do it. That was the thing at the time. That was the feeling, like, if I don't do this and it shows I'm not tough enough, I'm not committed enough to this job.
I can't,
And
I'm not
so-
cut out for this if I can't do every single job. Listen, an MMJ does the job of how many people? An editor, a shooter, an actual
Photographer.
reporter, and also a live shot engineer.
Right.
Like
So
four jobs.
We didn't
Nicole,
have
I-
backpacks. Remember, we had to have someone put up a mast. So you had to have a photographer and engineer to put up the live shot mast on your live truck. But now it just takes a little backpack, so it's cheaper.
I had a viewer ask me what an MMJ is, and the only thing I could think of was that SpongeBob GIF where he's like doing all the stuff around. And I said, that is the best way to describe an MMJ. Like 50 different hands doing a million different things and like with this frantic, I mean, how do you survive? And they're burnt out. That's the other part. Like
They're tired.
the hours that you're working, you're burnt out. And I'm sorry, like what market was she in? It's like
75.
okay, I will guesstimate. I bet you she wasn't making anything more than like $26,000, $27,000.
No way. No
Right?
way.
Like
No.
that's probably standard.
They call MMJs as well one-man bands. But I mean, yeah, we're doing the jobs of 4 people as MMJs and we're getting paid pennies on the freaking dollar. And what are the CEOs of these media companies making? You know, freaking millions on millions. And they're going, oh, those poor people at the bottom just doing everything that we tell them to do for 20 grand. That's sad. You know, it's like, but they don't care. They don't care about the human aspect of a human being that is being put in danger for their job every single day. Let's share some stories about what we've experienced as MMJs. And I'll go first if you want me to.
Go for it.
In Tyler, Texas, I remember I was like so excited because, you know, and I didn't really care about the TV part. I'm a storyteller, period. I don't care what format it is. I love telling stories. That's what I love. The TV thing just came with the business, right? So I'm out shooting a story. I think I was like headed to Jacksonville, right? Was it Jacksonville? Or what was this, the city south of Tyler? What was it?
Jacksonville.
It was Jacksonville. Driving to Jacksonville in this like Nissan, I don't remember the name of the car, but it was falling apart. I think
It was one of the Xteras, probably.
Xteras. Yes, thank you.
That
Kendall.
was disgusting. By
And you
the
had
way.
to climb in.
They all were.
You had to climb on the passenger side because the driver's side didn't work. Okay. So you're climbing in, you're putting your gear in the car, you're sweating because it's Texas. And I'm driving to Jacksonville with like all the lights on in the car, like every single light, oil light, whatever you name it, it's on. Driving 90 miles an hour, right? Like you had mentioned.
Because it was like an hour away. I mean, in East Texas,
Right.
it's spread out.
Because we didn't get to edit in the field. We had to come back to edit.
Right.
So I'm like, I got to get a package and a oversight in before, 5 o'clock. So I don't remember the story, but it was like, go to this trailer park in the middle of nowhere and knock on this door and ask this person about like a meth bust or something. Okay, I'm driving and I'm literally in the middle of nowhere and I don't have
She did
cell
the
phone.
harder stories. I did stories on donkeys that were straight.
Remember?
I don't have cell phone service because mind you, I have like a Nokia like flip phone. I have like a Razor at that
Right
point.
there,
something.
yeah.
I don't have cell phone service. I'm in the middle of absolute nowhere, East Texas, in the middle, trying to find a trailer park about a meth bust. Who knows who's going to answer the dang door? And I'm like, I look around and I remember that moment. I'm like, I could literally die and no one would know. No one
Right.
would know where I am. And that is the situations that MMJs are put in every single day in the news business today in 2022. Every single day. Not to mention the live shot that you're going to get hit by the car because you can't see shit.
Mhm.
Forget that. these are what these,
or the dogs chasing you down the street, right?
I mean,
That's
so
that's
that was
that's
just
happened.
that's one MMJ story that I will share. Someone else can go after me. Go ahead.
Been in, if you guys know, like tornadoes, floods, fires, like I've been in all these crazy situations. I remember being at a SWAT standoff and the shooter switched to where they started firing towards us because they hadn't given us a media staging area. So we just were kind of there. And they were like, oh shit, we're getting like the bullets are coming now towards us. But I was pretty lucky that I always had a photographer with me. Now, was my photographer always someone that would make me feel safe? Not necessarily. Were we both in crazy situations? I had a photographer who complained because we were sent to chase tornadoes and they put us in front of it instead of behind it. And we were like in a parking garage waiting for this little tornado to go through. It was like an EF1, but he was scared and he went to HR and complained because he's like, you wanted us to go out in tornadoes and we were in tornadoes and this is not safe. And he didn't feel safe. And we were getting like blown over because the winds were so strong. So I was an adrenaline junkie. Like I kind of got off on it. But once I had kids, I remember being in a hurricane and the car like lifting up and floating off. And I remember being like, it's not worth it. Like I did not want to be swept away because I needed to get a certain story and footage. And when I started floating off, I was like, we're getting out of here. I don't need to be in this flood water. But I was always pretty lucky. I didn't have an MMJ bad experience, but I even know with a photographer, some of the places they'll send you or people they'll have you knock doors with can still be scary. So I'm lucky I had a photographer at least with me.
Yeah.
Whether they were going to help me or not, it's at least a second pair of eyes.
Does anyone have like another safety story that they want to share? If not, I can read some that I've gotten from people.
I was going to say just off of what Kris was saying, the blog we all read, FTV Live, right? It covers local news because nobody else has any eyes on local news. And the guy who writes that I was reading, he was talking about how there are known dangers, right? And I think we all know that, but there are dangers that don't need to exist, right? Like if we are if we're covering a SWAT situation, we understand that we're covering a SWAT situation, right? We know that, but there's also no reason to be sending a reporter out in the dark to cover a water main break.
Right.
You can put it up as a graphic. You could take a still picture. Yeah. You can do a million different things. You don't have to be live alone on the side of the road in the middle of the night for that. There are definitely risks that I think we all know as journalists or former journalists that come with the job. Of course they do, right? That is being a journalist. You're there when things are happening and you cover it. Yeah. But there are things that can be done to mitigate safety issues that have been kind of like, oh, well, this is the one thing I will say that really pisses me off because I've seen them in some of the comments, Nicole, that we're going to read. Mm-hmm. Management saying, well, tell us if you feel unsafe. Let us know. Because that goes back to somebody who's 21, 22, 23 years old, who does not have that ability at that moment to speak up. And they think that management knows better. They think that they've got a Neil Barton or a Pam Chapman looking out for them who will make the right call and say, actually, that's probably not a good idea. We're going to send someone with you. So a lot of these young men and women who are coming out of college, at this point, they do not have the foresight to think. They think what we all thought, right? This is part of the job. They're not going to send me out if this is unsafe. Why would somebody do that to me? Oh, right? That's what they're thinking. They don't care. But they don't realize it.
I also see people stand up for themselves and then heard managers mocking them for it or punishing them in other ways. Next time something comes up, like, I'm not going to give you that story because I don't want you to feel I literally heard the quote, we're not sending the diva into the disaster after a colleague of mine who can't swim was in the storm chaser that drowned, like the car flooded with water and they had to be rescued out of it. Rescued. And the thing was, you can't send the diva into a disaster because he'll get scared. He couldn't swim. But I heard that from a manager's mouth in a meeting.
And I don't want to, and kind of to piggyback on this, I don't want to just bash all the stations because I worked at a station where, I covered the Trump rally when Trump was running for office. And I think it was 2016 or 17 or before the 2016, during that time, the campaign. And he'd come to Salt Lake City. And my news director was like, every single one who's covering this story is getting a bodyguard. And I was like, thank you. Like, now I feel safe. Now I have a bodyguard with me. And so I'm not saying that, once you climb and get into bigger markets, there are resources to, but sometimes they're few and far
Not
between.
always.
Not always. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say every single station in the United States of America is doing this. Like,
Right.
no, there are really great supportive managers that do care about your safety.
Exactly.
But what's the percentage, right? Like,
Well, 90% of them have MMJs.
Yes, 90% of them have MMJs. And are these MMJs, like you were saying, Neeha, 22, 21, 20, in the early 20s, are they going to say, I don't feel safe to their manager when it's their, first job? No.
I had a coworker, former coworker message me and just said, how long did it take us to speak up? I was like, now 38, 39 years old. I was like, that's
Yeah.
all-
About 10
I
years
was like,
in.
Yeah, about 10 years. Yeah.
And by the way,
Yeah.
how long it took me.
why are we speaking up? Because we're all out of the business.
Right.
I mean, that's the only reason we're speaking up. And I'm going to read something to you. And I'm going to read an MMJ story that I got sent to my DMs because now I
This was
mentor.
bad.
Yes, I mentor women who are leaving the news business. I'm in several groups. This is a group
Hold on,
of
guys. I'm going to take a pee break. Keep reading. BRB.
3,000 women, and this particular woman, I put the call out to say, your MMJ, horror stories, whatever. And we got hundreds of comments in less than 12 hours, hundreds of comments in less than 12 hours. And this person didn't even want to comment publicly in the forum. She sent me a private message. That's how much people are afraid to speak out. And I want to read what happened to her. This is crazy. So she says, I was about to go live in front of the police station. How many police station live shots have we ever done? Right. And a suspect showed up with the purpose of suicide by cop. He pulled in a few spaces next to me. I got out and shot at a police officer who was standing in the parking lot. Once the situation was contained, another officer escorted me and my equipment off of what was now a crime scene. I called the station in tears. And the response was, we're so glad you're okay. Are you able to go live and describe what happened? I did. And then I broke down alone, crouched under my tripod. The next day, I was off for a previously scheduled bereavement. Producers called me that morning and said, can I come in at 7 a.m. to the station to do a pre-taped thing really quick before they leave for her grandfather's funeral? When she said no, they still dedicated a portion of their coverage to creating a graphic showing where she was in relation to the shooting, like they were playing up how close I was to the danger. Any other time the situation was brought up in conversation at work, it was more of how impressed people were with my ability to go on air right after, and a few lower production folks were actually checking on me, how I was doing as a human being. Like, are you guys not disgusted by that? I mean, when I read that, I was like, you just witnessed someone get shot feet away from you and they don't care. All they care about is the story. They don't care about the trauma that you just witnessed.
Yeah.
And of course, I talked to her about like PTSD and I hope she's getting help and whatever. But PTSD is a real thing in our business. I mean, either way we slice it,
It's tough though, 'cause one of the things we did, I remember for a week, I was on like the car accident beat and I finally told them I couldn't do it another week after that. I mean, it was fine every once in a while, but it was like the 5th day in a row, literally, that someone was killed in an accident and they wanted me to knock on that family's door within hours of the accident because no one cares the next day, right? Like, unless it's a big story, there's deadly accidents every day.
Yeah.
And I remember knocking on people's doors who had just lost a family member and asking them to be on camera. It's like, we do it to other people. And of course we're going to do it to our own. And it's a whole bigger discussion probably about what does news need to be? And like, why do we need to do this?
We got hundreds of comments. And
Hundreds.
the overarching themes that I saw were going to dangerous areas alone, knocking on doors by themselves, nobody else, no weapons, sometimes no cell phone service. Driving, this was a surprising one to me because I didn't really think about this. Driving after like 12 to 24-hour shifts covering breaking news, driving sleepy, like they're exhausted and they're driving by themselves, should never happen. What else? Oh, and then of course the obvious with the Tori story is doing these live shots by themselves, and things like that happen, right? Where you get hit by a car.
I know.
Go ahead and read a couple that stick out.
This one, when I'm saying I'm just scrolling through these comments, I'm not even picking one that I've been looking at. This one just scrolling through. I was sent to cover a murder in a bad neighborhood. They wanted me to knock on the victim's home. The man who answered was so angry, started screaming at me. I stayed parked across the street and he came out on the porch and fired a gun in the air, screaming for me to leave. Obviously, I left super fast. I mean,
yeah, wow. These are the situations that we're put in every day as journalists. People don't really understand. They don't see what happens when the camera is not rolling, you know, what we actually have to go through sometimes. And I think it's time people know, especially MMJs.
I was 9 months pregnant and covered a house fire in a not so great neighborhood on the morning show. I shot a look live for my noon package, but management insisted we were live at the scene at noon, showing the exact same thing we showed up in the look live. The whole thing was wrapped up before our morning hit. Someone got upset that we were there at noon and came at us swinging a heavy metal chain and chasing my extremely pregnant, literally waddling self from the scene. So the station didn't get a noon live shot from us, and it was too late to throw the look lives onto the package. I was lucky to be with a photog, but there was no reason for us to be back at that location.
I was 8 months pregnant in a flooded restaurant with like live electrical wires in the water. And they were like, oh, the power's off, but we weren't 100% sure. And they wanted us live in there because the other station was live in there. And I was 8 months pregnant. I was peeing in the flood water because it was up to my waist. But I remember when I came back, it was like, you did, you got in there, you were in that restaurant just like the other station was. And that's all that mattered. And again, I had a photographer with me, but just that kind of stuff that doesn't need to be happening. But I think, at the end of the day, just the biggest change I'd like to see is to go back to, I don't know, 1995, 2005, even before MMJs became the thing, because we have backpacks now and they're cheaper and it's easier. But we're burning them out. So there won't be any anyways in 10 more years. Who knows what's going to happen to the future of TV business in general in 10 more years. But I think just like you said, demanding that there's a photographer with every reporter, for everything, probably not going to happen, but at least taking a step forward of no more solo live shots.
Yeah.
Because you can't be aware of what's happening when you're getting ready for a live shot. That's what people need to know. You can't have your head on a swivel. You've got an earpiece in your ear that's blocking out sounds. You can't hear cars or people coming towards you, and you're about to be on live TV and you're alone. And that to me is the biggest thing. I can't believe it happens. I remember when I first started hearing about that a few years ago, I'm like, what? Like, people are going live by themselves? I never heard of that before. I didn't know you could go live by yourself. Yeah. The technology has allowed it. You can do it.
Kendall's
I think just kind of realizing, because like we're talking, we know it is because local TV news isn't what it used to be, and viewership is down across the board. It's so cutthroat and competitive between each station in that market. They think these little things matter and is going to help them, get from number 3 to number 2 or number 2 to number 1. And we've seen, right, the things they've made us do, and it never really makes a difference. No. At least at the stations that I've been at. Mm-hmm. And like you said, with this girl who had the look live and they still wanted her to go live, nobody at home, the average viewer, knows the difference. It doesn't make the content any better.
Here's another good one.
Quality's not better.
Yeah.
I'd gotten into a car accident in my own personal car by slipping on black ice. My car was totaled. I was pretty shaken up. The following day, instead of asking if I was okay, my assistant news director told me that I was going to do a live shot about all the accidents that occurred the previous night and use my own crunched up car as my backdrop.
But I mean, I'm not surprised at all by her. I'm not surprised at all to hear about.
Yeah,
her.
I don't think any of us are surprised,
No,
unfortunately.
neither am I. I mean, it's just, I think the public needs to know how, I mean, we sign up for this job, right? But we don't sign up to not have resources to feel safe at our job, period.
Yeah.
These media companies have money. They're not using it. They're squeezing, resources to pay the least amount that they possibly can for one person to do the job. And then what? Tori gets kid on air, and now it's a can of worms.
Or
And
they put it towards something that isn't necessary. At one of my jobs, we had all these same problems, but then we find out, oh, we have this new weather tracker where we're going to go live from the car around town when weather comes through. Or we have a chopper. How much is a chopper? And do we need a chopper in this day and age?
We got
But we don't have cars that work. We have cars where the brakes just stop working in the middle of the highway. Or, terrible equipment or not
we
enough
got
people.
red lights once. Just
Well-
red lights inside. That would just a string of red lights.
They're always on. There was never a car that didn't have any sort of check something.
Okay,
Right.
there is one thing I really did want to talk about, because I feel like we have talked about news directors and general managers and stations itself. I posted about this on my Facebook because I think these are the people who escape a lot of the scrutiny. And because, Kris, I know you've been an anchor, and Kendall, you have too. Consultants, television consultants. I've been in so many meetings where these consultants at Smith Geiger, Magid,
Maggot.
oh, I've had
I can't
maggots.
think.
Yeah.
There are
Patty-
consultant
Patty Shine.
groups
Yeah.
that
Oh,
will
let's
come
not go
in.
there.
color basis.
Okay. But these consultants will come in and they will tell news directors and station groups what needs to be done. They are the ones that come up with these strategies.
Based on
And
the
especially for the
research.
morning shows, based on their research. And they will say live. They actually are the ones who come up with these strategies. And I feel like we just don't give them enough credit for the decisions that they make without ever meeting an MMJ and finding out what their job is. They're the ones that come out. They fly into multiple stations, right? And they come in and they're like, oh, you know what, Kendall? I feel like your show, we just need more live shots. We need more live shots. And I think they just don't get enough credit, because I've seen news directors just not have the power or authority to kind of make their own calls for their own stations, because they're getting a quote unquote strategy based on research for more live shots to make it seem to viewers that something is immediate, that a weather event that is not happening, except you've got a reporter standing outside to make it look like it is a major emergency, right? That's why they have them outside. Make it look like it is live. It's so bad that you're going to be live outside.
Mhm.
And I think they really should be part of the conversation too, because that really is where like these directives are coming from.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
That's where these directives are coming from.
That's true. But do the consultants know that half their staff is MMJs and they're being sent out to do these live shots by
Why
themselves?
would they? Because they fly in from different station to station. Why would they?
They wouldn't know that. But a news director says, okay, we need more live shots. Half our staff's MMJs. That means you guys are all going live by yourselves. Sorry, we don't care about your safety. That's it. And I think that falls on the news director. I don't care. I mean,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, Neeha, and I do think that consultants play a role, especially with the research component. But at the end of the day, the news director has
Who's
to make
getting paid a
calls.
lot of money, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, they're getting paid a lot of money to send these people and these reporters who are making $20,000 a year or less sometimes in dangerous situations to make sure
Yeah, I
they're getting
agree.
that live shot. And it's like, where is the line drawn? Someone gets hit
Yeah,
by
they
a
know.
car.
I mean, of course, the news director knows. They know. They would never send their own kids out. Come on, that's the other part.
No,
Not
but
gonna
here's
send
the
their own
thing,
kids out.
we've made this girl a hero for getting hit. so it's not gonna stop anything unless we speak up about it, because then other MJ's like, well, if I get hit, I'm gonna be a national hero too. Look,
Yeah, I'm
everyone's
gonna get a
watching.
great shot for my reel.
On that
For my
note,
next
let's
job.
on that note, let's watch the Today Show.
Oh, we have to. It's so bad.
It's so bad. We have to watch. I'm sorry, we all love Hoda, but I don't like her in this. Okay, sorry.
Kendall, was I supposed to be Hoda?
A lot about someone in a few moments like that. Joining us now from West Virginia, WSAZ reporter Tori Yorgey. Tori, good morning. We're so glad you're okay. I don't know. We're not going to show that video anymore. I don't know what your mother thinks when she sees that, but how are you doing? What did you think when you saw the video? And what do you think about this reaction you're getting?
Yeah, it's crazy. Thank you for having me. This is really crazy. When I saw it, I was really surprised because you stand there waiting for your shot to go on air for a few minutes at least. And of course, right as I'm about to talk, it happens. And it just was amazing that it got so in the frame, everything. And just, while I was on, no video over me or anything. My mom was not, too happy. She's obviously in the Philadelphia area, so she didn't see it right away, but she was really upset in the beginning. But now that she knows I'm okay, my whole family kind of same deal. They're a lot better now that they know everything's
Tori,
fine.
so many things struck us about that quick moment. One is the minute you fell down, you're like, I'm okay. And you were worried about the driver. Is the driver, I hope she's not upset. You were worried about your anchor who was talking to you to make sure that everyone knew that he was actually with you. It was like the most a bunch of selfless acts right there.
Oh, well, that's sweet. But no, it really was just because, and I've said this before, accidents happen, and that woman, bless her heart, she did not mean to do that. I could tell as soon as she got out of the car, and I just read her face and I was like, okay, just calm down. Everything's fine. I'm okay, and I think it was more scary. I thought I was going under, the tire initially. So I was kind of in a shock. I wasn't really hurt. It was just kind of scary. But yeah, the outreach has been phenomenal. I can't even thank people enough. It's been crazy.
Well, Tori, we know today's your last day there at WSAZ in Huntington. You're off to a new station in Pittsburgh. They are lucky to have a reporter like you.
Oh my gosh, that means so much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I know a lot of journalists are speaking out about this and safety, and I do think that's a conversation to be had, but I do just want to point out that I did not feel in danger. My boss is the first to tell me if I do to leave. I really thought I was in a good spot, but now going to Pittsburgh, I will definitely learn from this, and hopefully this will never happen again.
No, but an intrepid one-woman band, and a lot of us in news have done that very thing. And Tori, you are on your way, and we are really, really happy to meet you. And congrats on all your successes.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's enough of that. So a couple things from that, though. I really want to dissect the video really quick. Just because Hoda using the words, for me, I was like, Hoda used the word selfless. No, you're in a trauma shock response. Like you don't know what's happening. You're just like trying to speak because that's what you're trained to do. It's not a selfless act. It's a trauma response. Let's call it what it is, Hoda. And the word, I don't know who the anchor is on the far left. Sorry, I don't know his name.
Craig Melvin.
Yeah. He was like, you're on your way. The Philly station can't wait to have a reporter like you. Why? So they can abuse your work as well? I mean, the whole thing.
I saw a lot of comments from other journalists about this whole Today Show segment. And a lot of it was, do you have to be hit by a vehicle? Do you have to be in a situation where your life is threatened for you to be a good reporter, for you to move up, for you to feel like you did your job? The answer is no, by the way. I mean, the answer is no. You're a great reporter anyway. But I think that's what the conversation seems to lead to, right? Like, oh my gosh, you got up. Like you got up and you were still reporting. At that point, nobody even knew if she had a concussion. Nobody even knew if she was actually hurt, right? They were talking about
moving the camera. She starts moving the camera. I would have been, as the anchor, I would have been like, don't touch anything. Wait till the EMS comes if you just got hit by a car. What are you doing? You could make it worse.
And also just from the get-go, everybody was laughing. Like the main anchors on the Today
It's like
They
their
were-
kicker. It's the kicker at the end of the
Yeah.
show. Sometimes like, hey, look at this funny video of this amazing reporter. It's like
Viral video.
no discredit.
They're
to her,
still on
like,
TV too. They're trying to
right.
Yeah, you're
say
right.
what they're
Kendall.
want, I mean, they're trying, they can't go on during the morning and turn it into this big, investigative, hard interview because they know that they're going to get in trouble. They already, we know how this works. There were conversations beforehand, and we know what the main headline was, the overarching headline that everybody else who doesn't realize what's going on behind the scenes took from it.
Yeah.
So they had to play that angle, unfortunately.
The
She
first
even
interview that
said-
they did, I remember Savannah saying, well, I hope she got that big job. I hope she got that big job. And I thought,
like you earned your stripes because you got hit by a
Yeah.
car. Yeah.
It's like
no,
a cop. Think of it like this, okay? Because my husband is a cop, so like they're in dangerous situations a lot, sometimes alone too. It's a little different because they're cops. It's a different job you sign up for, but nonetheless. So he's out there, he gets shot, okay? Like he gets shot. Like it wasn't something he did to deserve it, or just like she didn't she got hit by a car, he gets shot. And now all of a sudden, like he's the hero cop and he's getting promoted and he should be promoted. Like no one would ever say that if a cop got shot. Like no one would ever say that.
No.
It'd be like, that's awful. It's tragic, and then move on. But like, it wouldn't be a national, it just blows my mind that because we're on TV and expected to constantly be fine on TV, no matter what's happening in your real world or what's happening behind you, you have to be calm, cool, and collected, even if you get hit by a fucking car. And then somehow now, like, you're a hero because of it. And I'm not taking it away from her because, I can only imagine, I didn't get hit by the car, but nonetheless, it's just.
I think that's why it resonated so much. I think
Right.
that's why it resonated so much, is so many of us. I had so many messages from people. It was like I couldn't sleep, and I was one of them, because I think we just thought this is so much bigger than a kicker, right? This is
Yeah.
not about somebody who
being a hero.
Yes, and not about somebody getting up, right? Like, I don't want to talk about that, because what everybody saw, at least in our local news business, was that, oh my God, she could have died, right? Like, oh my God, she could have died. And instead, we're looking at people sort of, to be honest, like kind of laughing through it, like, wow, she got hit by a car and she got up and she was able to finish her live shot. This is amazing.
And like,
and not a
applause.
single,
It's like, no,
right.
that's
And-
not
and they-
one of the networks could have taken this as an opportunity to do
Yes.
a deeper story about the problems with.
But
local
why
news
didn't they,
and these-
Kendall?
Why didn't they?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. Why didn't
Yeah.
they? Because
Somebody could have pitched this, and you know what they said. We're not doing that.
no, we're not doing that. We're not and you want to know why they're not doing it? Kendall, you're right. It's like they're not doing it because they are the news business. They don't want to expose the business and how it actually
Right.
works.
I had a comment from somebody who said they may not fully understand what an MMJ does. And I almost gasped, because I'm sorry, you get paid millions of dollars. And if you don't know what somebody in your industry does, that's a problem. And you're supposed to be this journalist, right? You're supposed to be a journalist. Of course they know what an MMJ is,
Yeah.
of course. And
Yeah.
but you're right, it was just reduced to a kicker. And I kept thinking about how, I think it was Savannah who led into it, and she was like, I don't know how your mother felt. She's a mom. How would you feel if you watch your kid get hit by a car on television and watched her trying to, like, I mean, imagine if you watched it, right? And you're like, is she okay? Is she getting up?
Okay.
And then you're
Imagine
watching
she
everybody
gets
else.
punched. She gets punched by somebody, right? That someone comes up behind her, punches her, and runs off, and she finishes the live shot. Like, would we be celebrating that she did that?
No.
What? No. And it's just because it was an accident that someone
Yeah.
hit her, but it's still something that could have happened either way. We had a reporter here in Austin, Rochester. She was with a photographer, but I'm sure you guys probably saw it because she went viral as well. And I think like the Today Show and stuff picked it up. And it's her getting sexually harassed by these guys behind her all morning. And her face stays, she's traumatized by it. and it went viral about her reaction. And it went viral because it's like, hey, look how traumatized she is. Like, she's so upset, but she's trying not to cry because she's on TV. And at least in that case, people were like, this is wrong. This is wrong. Not like, she's a hero. Look, she didn't cry.
I want to, yeah, exactly. And I really want to talk about solutions, and there's a petition going around, just to wrap up.
Yeah.
But one more thing before we get into that, it just reminds me, and I don't know if you guys ever got the opportunity to go to the museum in DC, but it was, it's a museum. Well, it was there. It's not there anymore, but, and it pays tribute to all the journalists across the world that have died doing their jobs. And we're seeing, you see a wall of war reporters that have gone out with, crews upon crews to cover war. Now that's a different story, right? But I could not imagine Tori Yorgey's photo on that wall because she got hit by a car. Thank God she's okay. Thank God. But if the outcome were different, and I can't imagine the story next to her photo on the wall at the museum that is no longer there, but saying she got hit by a car because she was out by herself doing a dang live shot for a water main break in the dark. I can't picture it. Like, this needs to be a conversation that needs to be had from the GMs down at every single station across the country at this point.
Well, the thing is, we're supposed to be the watchdogs, right? But nobody's watching us.
Yes.
No one's keeping an eye on local journalists. And I keep thinking about how often we are out there covering injustices. We're out there the second somebody gets a call to the newsroom talking about something that happened to a worker and their life was in danger. We're the first ones there to find out what happened. We put it on the news, but nobody does that about us. And it's been going on for way, way too long. And I think we've seen the tide at this point. Finally, there was an opportunity, right? Like, the fact that her story was on the networks, what was frustrating was that I think everybody felt like, oh my gosh, we're finally going to talk about this. We're finally going to talk about it.
It didn't happen.
And then nobody talked about it.
I kind of
right?
felt like
Nobody talked about it.
You guys and I feel bad for her because I know I do feel bad for her, but I'm going to say this because do you feel like she sold out, or did you feel like she got a gag order? Did Gray? I mean, okay, so for people
I think she's in her 2020s.
Yeah. So Gray.
I mean, we just
Gray Media owns that station.
Can't blame
and
her.
They have still not made a comment. Gray Media, who owns WSAZ in Huntington, West Virginia, where Tori Yorgey worked when she got hit, has still not put out a public statement about this incident, which I think is ridiculous at this point. They should be saying something. That's the first thing. But what happens from here, guys? The solutions, like what happens? How do we fix this?
Because there is no oversight or a watchdog, right? At this point, we've had, like you said, everyone's been applauding her intrepid reporterness, whatever you want to call it. Her adrenaline rush, her, trauma response, really. But we saw some of our societies for journalism. We saw the National Association of Broadcasters, a whole host of even managers, people in higher positions, all come out, and they've had that same exact response. Congratulations to Tori for, doing such an amazing job. She's a badass. And I think instead of having more people, especially some of these associations who are supposed to be speaking up for journalists, saying, hey, we're so glad she's okay, but now let's talk about the fact that this should never happen again. I think the solution is, because we don't have laws for this, right? And I don't really expect laws for journalists, to be honest. So I think at least pressure from some of our journalism organizations is the next solution, because that's where the pressure kind of comes from, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Like the SPJs, Society of Professional Journalists, the NABJs, the AMIJAs, the, radio, all the, big media. I guess you could call them oversights. I mean, maybe, but.
And I don't think we're asking for a lot, right? I mean, stop sending MMJs out to do live shots
By
by
themselves.
themselves.
No
Stop
night
sending-
live shots alone.
No night live
Period.
shots. Exactly.
This is a whole nother topic. I would be curious to know what kind of mental health support Tori Yorgey is getting right now after being hit by a car on live TV. What type of mental health resources are stations offering their reporters, their photogs, their producers, whoever's in the field? Yes, they have, with your insurance, you have whatever, you have, therapy stuff, but if you're a police officer, you have people on hand. You have, what are they called? You know what I'm talking about, Kris.
You can also go on light duty, whereas TV, it's like you got to go back to do the news the next day. I mean, it's like
Or-
there's never not a newscast.
First responders, firefighters, they have the priests. What are they called? Starts with a C. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
They're
I'm having
there.
a brain fart too.
Chaplain.
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 Think of a name. Chaplains available to talk to about, things. What do reporters have? What do reporters have?
Well, some of these companies, including some of these companies, have services where they call it, what is it called? It's like EAP, emergency.
Yeah, emergency. I know what you're talking about. They have EAPs, but they're not. And I've done a lot of research on this. But
I've called after my coworker committed suicide because it was pretty traumatic. And they're not exactly very helpful, but I think that's the loophole. We have a phone line for you to call, but your workday doesn't change. Nothing systemically changes, right? Like the systems don't change. They're not making any changes to how things operate, but we've given you a phone number to call to cover
employee assistance
their ass.
program.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Employee
Yeah.
assistance program. So every station has EAPs, or they have to by law, I think. But again, I had to use one too, Neeha, at one point, and it was like, okay, you can, in 70 days, you can get an appointment to see somebody. And I was like, okay. I ended up taking, this is before I left Scripps, and this is just a whole different ball of wax about mental health and working in news, PTSD. We all have it. I don't care what anyone says. And I actually had to take, disability leave for 3 months. I was in the hospital because my mental health was so bad from my job. Like there's no mental health services. So I would be curious to know what kind of support Tori's getting right now on top of this. Not only are we're putting people's physical safety at risk, we're putting them in positions of potential assault, sexual assault. I was reading stories on our
Many
sexual assault, harassment, not to mention physical safety, emotional safety, mental health, mental safety. I mean, all of it, it's in jeopardy. And
for $20,000 a year.
And no pension.
No pension.
Nope.
This is something to think about. There's also a change.org petition going around. I'm going to put that in the comment section of wherever this video goes. But I want to thank you guys. Do you guys have anything else to say? I want to thank you I couldn't think of a better group. And Neeha and I kind of got together. We're like, we got to do something. What are we going to do? And I was like, I couldn't think of a better group.
This is just really sad. That's what made me upset. Like, this is just really, really sad, because I think we saw it happen and we all gasped, like this poor woman actually getting hit by a vehicle on television. And then we saw the response, and I think that just sort of made it like snowball into something worse, especially we saw in our groups. It became a kicker. Yeah. It was a joke afterwards, right? It was like, wow, crazy.
For those who don't know, a kicker is like a soft story at the end of a newscast. We've been referencing kicker, but it's like a sweet dog story that they put at the end of a newscast to like lighten the mood of all the death and destruction they just told you about. But this story was a kicker. It was lighthearted, apparently. So someone's actual physical safety was a joke.
Yeah. Well, she's a hero. She's a badass,
For $20,000, $22,000. I don't know.
Just to let the world know how the media business really works. But I appreciate you ladies so much for taking the time to talk. And this is amazing.
Good luck editing.
Thanks. I'm
not in an Al-Qaeda hostage video, because that'd be great.
At first, I was like, "Is Kris in a jail cell? What's happening?"
Yes. It's Sinclair put me here because I didn't sign that NDA. So.
Well, I'll let you guys.
guys.
Love you guys too. It was good seeing you guys.
It's good catching up with y'all. Love y'all.
And we'll see you
Bye.
soon.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.